Hello. In this video I am going to reintroduce my setting of William Blake's poem Night. Now originally it was the first thing I put on this channel actually, and it was originally just with a voice introduction with a rather sort of alarming photograph of me staring at you blankly. So I thought I'd redo it with a real person speaking to you. As I've explained before, my computer isn't really powerful enough to do video, so there's a bit of a visual delay, but I still think it's probably on the whole more effective than just having a voice introduction with no live video. So anyway, this is a choral work of mine. It's a setting of a poem, Night, by William Blake. It's one of my two Blake songs which I wrote in the 1990s. The other one is the Tiger, a very famous poem, Tiger, Tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night. But the recording I had of that isn't so satisfactory, so I decided to feature the recording of Night, which is a very good performance, I think, and it's almost perfect, in fact. And it's given by the Arcadian singers of Oxford University, who are a very excellent choir based here in Oxford, and they sang some of my music a few years ago now. Hopefully they might be singing some more of my music this year in November. That's the plan. I don't know quite yet if it's going to happen or not, but I hope so. Anyway, in the meantime, this setting, it's for, in some places, 8-part choir. It starts in 4 parts and then it expands to 8 parts. And it's a setting which I would describe as pretty typical of what somebody called the new lyricism. That's my style of music. So it's basically melodic, and it's based on certain melodic patterns which occur at the beginning, and they come back again, but they're never repeated exactly the same. So it's a kind of continuous variation form. There's not much really more I can say about the piece itself. I've been interested in William Blake for a very long time. I was first alerted to his poetry actually when I was a child myself. We did Tiger, Tiger in a class at primary school, and I was very, very struck by this poem. I found it absolutely magical and quite full of wonder and awe, and I still do actually. It's one of my favourite poems. And that stuck in my mind. And then later on, in my teens, I suppose it was, I was particularly interested in William Blake again because of a wonderful version of Job, the book of Job, which was done by Vaughan Williams, the composer Vaughan Williams, who's I've mentioned elsewhere is a big influence on me. He made it into what he called a masque for dancing, or possibly a ballet would be another way of describing it, but he called it a masque for dancing. And it was very, very much based on Blake's amazing illustrations to the Book of Job, which you can get. It's published now, and he did a series of illustrations which are in that extraordinary Blakean style, visionary style. And this drew my attention to Blake again, and I started reading more of his poetry. The Songs of Innocence and Experience, of course, very famous. Also, he wrote a huge amount, in fact, of massive epic poems. Now, they are a bit obscure, it must be said. He invented a whole mythology of his own, and in order to really understand what he's on about, you actually have to delve quite deeply into the symbolism and mythology of his own invented world. And to be honest, a lot of them are pretty turgid and not very easy to follow. But within those poems there are little nuggets. For example, the famous poem Jerusalem, which was set as a hymn, which everybody knows, that is actually a tiny little fragment from a vast epic called Jerusalem. It's actually called Jerusalem, or the Emanation of the Giant Albion. That gives you a kind of idea of Blake's epic style. And so although parts of his big poems are interesting and striking, I think really he was at his best in these short lyrical poems. Night is one of them, and I'm very fond of it as a poem as well as a tiger, because it sums up a kind of vision of night time, but not as a sinister time, or at least not entirely sinister. It might be dark, and there may be sinister elements like wolves howling in the distance, which he mentions, but for him it has a kind of benign aspect, because for him, in his typical visionary way, he thinks of the angels as standing guard over humanity at night, under the aegis of God, and in the end he paints a picture of serenity and calm, and also eventually a vision of some kind of ultimate peace, visionary transcendent peace. So that's how the poem works, and I'll just read the text of it before you hear the poem. So this is Night by William Blake. The sun descending in the west, the evening star does shine. The birds are silent in their nest, and I must seek for mine. The moon, like a flower in heaven's high bower, with silent delight sits and smiles on the night. Farewell, green fields and happy groves, where flocks have took delight, where lambs have nibbled, silent moves the feet of angels bright. Unseen they pour blessing and joy without ceasing on each bud and blossom and each sleeping bosom. When wolves and tigers howl for prey, they pitying stand and weep, seeking to drive their thirst away and keep them from the sheep. But if they rush dreadful, the angels most heedful receive each mild spirit new worlds to inherit. And there the lion's ruddy eyes shall flow with tears of gold, and pitying the tender cries, and walking round the fold, saying, wrath by his meekness, and by his health sickness is driven away from our immortal day. And now beside thee, bleating lamb, I can lie down and sleep, or think on him who bore thy name, graze after thee and weep. For washed in life's river, my bright mane for ever shall shine like the gold, as I guard o'er the fold.